Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions.
We are very excited to host today's event, Navigating Cyber Threats, Advanced Strategies and Tools for Cyber Threat Protection. Presenting today's topic is Logan Hillard. Logan is a cybersecurity instructor with over 4 years of experience and has worked in multiple security projects. He has successfully delivered numerous corporate training to date for various clients across the globe.
Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the security practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com.
Today's session is designed to equip it and security professionals with the critical knowledge and pioneering strategies necessary to navigate today's complex cybersecurity landscape. As key players in this field, you'll dive into advanced tools and strategies to protect your organization, while gaining valuable insights to advance your career as a cybersecurity analyst.
Now, I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early, and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic.
Hey, Logan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome, everybody, to this CompTIA webinar called Navigating Cyber Threats, Advanced Strategies and Tools for Cyber Threat Protection. I'll be your host, Logan Hillard. I am a network engineer, a systems administrator, a cybersecurity instructor. I have a couple certs to my name, and I've been in the industry for about 10 years. Again, we'll see some of my experience in the presentation. This agenda for this masterclass is going to cover introduction to cybersecurity analysis, along with a brief intro to emerging threats and vulnerabilities. There are many out there, but this is just going to be a touch point on that. Cybersecurity essentials, threat detection, vulnerability assessment, and more. Many of the things and skills specifically that we'll need to learn on the blue team side of things, which we'll talk about. as well as popular cybersecurity tools with practical demonstrations. I'll show you guys some real world stuff as well. At the end, we'll have an overview of CompTIA CySA Plus, which is basically their blue team SOC analyst exam. We'll do an overview as well as preparation and tips, along with the Q&A session at the end for any questions we may have from the audience. All right, so first, intro to cybersecurity analysis. When you're talking about, being able to see an attack happen, the defense has to be able to see the offense, right? You can imagine yourself on like a football field or a football pitch, depending on which football you're talking about. And if you were trying to play defense against the offense, but you couldn't see them, that would be fairly complicated, right? How would you know where to go, who to defend, at what time to make your runs, right? So defense requires visibility. There is no way around that. That may seem very obvious, but inherently it is fundamental to the defensive capabilities of the blue team. The blue team being the defenders. The red team or the attackers are going to be the other side of that coin, right? Blue team is going to be the defenders of an organization, and red team may be attackers who work for the organization, or you could be using that to just describe attackers in general, okay? So our first step is the defense requires visibility. Second step is visibility is not inherent. It doesn't come with every organization. Doesn't come with every tool, solution. Does not come pre-configured out of the box by default anywhere. You have to configure this. You have to set it up. You can't just hope that, if you get attacked via a cybersecurity incident, you can't just assume that you'll be able to see everything that happened if you aren't specifically configured for that to be true. Not only does it have to be designed and built, but it also has to be maintained, because these, just like other tools, can also break, right? So if you aren't maintaining it, if you aren't making sure that it's a part of your onboarding process to effectively get an agent in every subnet or on every endpoint, that's going to reduce your visibility. Once you have visibility in the environment, monitoring can begin. This is just basically what a SOC is designed for, right? Security Operations Center analyst or a SOC analyst is a blue teamer, normally a level 1 blue teamer, that sits at a workstation plugged into their SIEM, which we'll see a couple of those here in a bit, plugged into their SIEM to basically monitor their environment. The visibility and the configuration of the environment has already happened, right? So once you get that set up, you can then get your SOC analysts to actually start working, right? To actually do their job. The monitoring process basically allows your blue team to respond to incidents if they are seen. That's kind of the whole difficulty here on the blue team side is if you don't see the attack, even with monitoring and visibility set up, then you're not going to notice it. You won't be able to respond to it. So SOC analysts, again, the SOC itself, the monitoring and all that capability allows you to see things, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that you are going to see everything. There's actually an entire category called unknown unknowns, as opposed to things like known knowns, known unknowns, and then unknown unknowns. That category, which is about, you could say it's a third of all attacks, but we don't really know how many they are because they're unknown, right? It's an entire category of threat types that you cannot see. And if you cannot see them, then you can't respond to them, even with all this stuff configured, right? So another way to say that is that blue team is hard. It's tough. All right. We're going to talk about a couple things that you could do here in a second. And of course, me getting ahead of myself here, as one does, the visibility potential is really what we're talking about here, right? Known knowns, unknown knowns, and then unknown unknowns, right? Because there's a separate separation there between what they are. Similar to true positives, false positives, true negatives, and false negatives. It's kind of similar here, but there's really only 3 categories, at least that matter in my eyes. The known knowns are going to be the things that get blocked by antivirus, right? IPS, intrusion prevention system on your next gen firewall or on your network proxy. And so it's either going to be happening at the network layer or on the endpoint via something like antivirus or EDR, endpoint detection and response. Unknown knowns are essentially your threats that can be found through threat hunting. An unknown known attack vector is something that you understand the TTP, which is going to be your threat and basically your process, um, the process that the attacker takes to form their attack, right? So let's say that they use like a specific tool, that would be part of their procedures, which is part of TTP. And if you understand what they're doing, then you can search for those things, though you may not understand exactly what they're doing. You may not understand exactly what the process is. You can search for it. So even though antivirus or IDS or EDR may not kick off because of one of these threats, because it's something new, right? It's something that maybe bypasses EDR to a degree, or antivirus because it's a new signature, perhaps. This is when proactive threat hunting becomes kind of paramount, right? To be able to see these types of attacks that are not obviously going to get picked up by your automated tooling. This is where you need humans to get involved, right? Now, the problem for us as defenders is that unknown unknowns, really you can't see these. You don't understand the size of this threat and the size comparison to the other two categories, the known knowns and the unknown knowns. So the unknown unknown is pretty scary. It's basically the thing that everyone is trying to stop. Maybe zero trust would help secure against this type of threat vector the best. But outside of that, right, visibility, threat hunting, and things like that, they'll get you as far as they can. But this category, again, is difficult for us just in general. This is the APTs, the advanced persistent threats. The nation states are in this category. So we're not always going to be able to stop them. That's just the reality. But we have to be able to try. In order to try, you have to get all this other stuff down first, right? Before you even attempt to stop real world APTs. So on that same note, in terms of visibility potential, let's talk about some recent cyber threats. So if you haven't heard of any of these yet, these are pretty recent. Not all of them, right? I mean, they're all from this year, but they're not necessarily recent. Recent to me is a couple of weeks old, because whenever a 0-day drops on the internet, that's about how long it takes before that 0-day is categorized and configured among all the vendors in the space, right? They're all going to understand it, have a signature pushed out for their automated tooling for it, etc. So let's go through them really quick. If anyone hasn't heard of the XZ utils or the libLZMA supply chain vulnerability that occurred, I think this was 3 or 4 or 5 months ago now. This was likely the largest attack that you never heard of, right? If this would have gone to plan, it would have likely backdoored almost every Debian system on the planet. So just let that one sink in. Not every Linux system, but every Debian OS, which Debian is a distribution of Linux. It's one of many, but it is a foundational distribution. So other distributions like Ubuntu are actually built on top of a Debian operating system. So anything that affects Debian would also affect Ubuntu most of the time. That's a pretty good understanding of it. So XZ-utils was this supply chain vulnerability that affected a library called libLZMA, and it was backdoored. They backdoored a library that everyone uses, and this is basically like a decryption library. It doesn't do anything really fascinating, but someone was able to pretend to be a developer and then to get onboarded to the project that that handles liblzma, right? They keep it updated. Basically, a bunch of developers working for free on their own time to maintain this project for basically the world. And because there is no like centralized authority that runs this, it's just a couple programmers that that work on their off time. One malicious programmer was able to get inside their team and pretend to be a real programmer, in so much as they were actually pushing updates to liblzma that were positive, things that were actually good. They did this for years until one day either their account got the person got blackmailed and turned into an insider threat, or the account was stolen, or the attacker was malicious the entire time. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of the methodology, the outcome was the same. They tried to push a backdoor to every single device on the planet. And the only reason that someone found this was because they were performing some benchmarking of some of the new changes. So a random developer that was just trying to make sure that his application wasn't going to be a whole lot slower was benchmarking some of the new changes to that repository, and they were able to be seen. I think this is becoming a lot more common with supply chain and repository cybersecurity, especially after this incident. This was the biggest one that you've never heard of. Will likely go down as, if that developer wouldn't have seen this, this would have gone down as one of the largest cybersecurity incidents in history. All right. Speaking of one of the largest cybersecurity incidents in history, has anyone heard of the eBury hacks? Probably not. I hadn't until like a couple of months ago when someone released some more information on it. But what was interesting about this is the eBury backdoor botnet has been spreading on its own. Well, okay, there are attackers because it has been changing. This is actually one of the most interesting botnets that I've ever heard about because they are literally doing versioning. So if anyone knows, if anyone's a developer, you'll understand what I mean by how wild that is, but they are treating it like an actual application. They're just maintaining it. So they update and it's got like a version number, like a 3.012. And so the what's funny is that the defenders, the people doing cybersecurity research, can follow it through its process and say, oh, look how it's changed. So that's interesting. This has been going on since 2009. This botnet has been spreading, and they were able to find this backdoor on servers, and they don't fully understand every time how it gets in. It gets in through a variety of ways, and it's very complicated. And it is like, how do you say? It's extremely good at what it does. Okay. Very good at what it does. Being able to find its way into a server, gain access to it, and then add that server to a botnet, which then adds that server to, the attackers could be doing anything. They could be performing DDoS against somebody. There's a lot of different options there. So the MGM hacks. If you hadn't heard about this one, MGM Grand was owned through a social engineering attack, and they basically, attackers called them up while they were having some downtime or something. Something was going on with there was a vendor getting involved for some reason, and they pretend called the help desk saying, hey, we need to reset the admin credentials. And the help desk was like, oh, well, these vendors are on site. That makes sense. Totally. And so they reset the credentials for them. Hey, here you go. Here's access. And so the attackers, which were just pretending to be that vendor that called in, they got access to MGM's environment, the entire environment, and I think that they crypto locked everything. So they weren't able to gain access to it. It was down for like a couple of weeks, and every single day that it was down, they were losing millions of dollars. Every single day. So this was a huge one because it still shows that social engineering is one of the major ways that attackers get into environments, and that is still true in 2024. The CrowdStrike update failure, everyone probably heard about this one. I'd be shocked if you didn't. But this one took down everything. Governments, education, airports, anything that matters. Everyone that was putting all their eggs into the cybersecurity basket, they were going with CrowdStrike because they were the best EDR, to a degree, are still the best EDR in the industry. So there wasn't like a question of like, oh, well, maybe we should have gone with some other EDR vendor. No, CrowdStrike is the best. And, don't take my word for that. Go test it. It is very good at what it does. It blocks based off things like entropy, which is things that happen. It happens all the time on a computer. So if something is flagging on entropy, they're taking it to the nth degree. So they block a lot. They're very good at what they do. But as you could see, a failure of that update process was able to cause blue screens across how many devices, right? They're still under there's legal lawsuits going on about damages, recovering damages from CrowdStrike due to that incident because it was so bad. It was a big deal, right? As of like even a month ago, there were a couple much smaller organizations still recovering, which is insanity. All right. So hopefully that gave you kind of a good, presentation on what's necessary, what the reality is on the blue team side, and then some of the actual incidents that are happening real world. Now, again, if anyone has ever done anything like team sports or just sports in general, you'll understand why proactive measures are required, right? If you're flat-footed, let's say that you're playing literally any sport and you're flat-footed, and then you wait for the thing to happen, the ball to be played, the pitch to be hit, whatever it is, and you wait for it to happen, and then you respond. That's called reactive, right? And proactive is I think about what could happen and I actually start shifting my momentum over in that direction, the way that I could be going, before I actually need to start moving there, before the thing has actually been played or anything like that. Proactive measures are obviously a lot more much stronger than reactive. Reactive, right, or proactive is going to beat reactive measures 9 times out of 10, right? If you move before the ball is even played and you assume where the ball is going to be, you're going to beat your man, right? The person that's on you, you're going to win that engagement. Again, 9 times out of 10. It's not like 50-50. Proactive is always going to be faster, without a doubt. So when you're talking about cybersecurity, this is also true. Reactive cybersecurity operations, which is basically just a SOC. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But a reactive cybersecurity operation is not enough. The reactive cybersecurity operation is not going to be able to handle the unknown knowns, let alone the unknown unknowns, okay? Most of the time, if you want to do proactive cybersecurity properly, you need to perform what's known as threat hunting. And threat hunting is essentially utilizing your entire environment and then utilizing a query language to basically index, search for potential attacks in your environment that your tools haven't yet found. So if you already have EDR running on every endpoint, that doesn't mean that the EDR is going to stop everything. If there is an EDR bypass utilized against that endpoint, then the EDR is going to be completely blind, right? So the reactive, the thing that has to see it happen in order to respond to it, is never going to be able to do anything beyond the known knowns category, right? So the proactive cybersecurity operation requires not only threat hunting, and this is normally done actually in like an EDR portal, a threat hunting portal that has to do with EDR, XDR. This is just extended detection and response. This is just a sales terminology, but you may see EDR solutions described as either EDR, XDR. And then on top of that, not only threat hunting and the EDR solution itself, but also security orchestration and automated remediation, also known as AR or SOAR. Right? So this is essentially an automation utility. Now, automation utility is really useful for an organization as they try to respond to things automatically, right? So that's why it's called automated remediation. So the security orchestration piece essentially allows a cybersecurity expert to visualize information, to find information through either like a query. You can use Python or no-code solutions like Logic Apps in Azure, and you can have that process happen automatically. So it's searching for something, And then if it sees it, or if any threat occurs, or if any a ticket is created by the blue team, security orchestration can basically respond to that ticket or that threat, whatever it is, with automated remediation, which again is going to be like a Python script or something along those lines, or some no-code solution that makes a change. So basically, a proactive cybersecurity operation, your SOC analyst should not be doing everything manually. There should be an advanced blue teamer, someone at level 2 or level 3, that is essentially performing automation to resolve problems quickly, right? So that your SOC analysts don't get overwhelmed, and you can actually reduce tickets and overall work on your SOC analysts by performing automated remediation. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between the two. Very important to understand which one is which and why it makes sense to try to get your organization to a proactive cybersecurity operation. In terms of threat detection, vulnerability assessments, and others, these are all kind of your like essentials to the solutions that you could get in terms of like audits, right? If I was actually telling someone, how do you secure your organization? One of the best things that you can do is get an audit, right? Get someone to come tell you whether or not your environment is secure. Because without knowing where you're currently at, it's difficult for you to say what we should then do. So this kind of says, this is the beginning. This is what we do fundamentally, right? So a vulnerability assessment is really just a compliance baseline. It validates that all of your organizations or all your devices, your networks are not having like obvious vulnerabilities all over the place, right? That's the whole idea. So those are pretty cheap, and they don't really validate your cybersecurity posture. They are more about compliance, okay? And let me describe that by talking about a pen test. A pen test is actually a bunch of red teamers, a bunch of attackers with attacker mindsets, attacker training, where they validate vulnerabilities not only in the devices, but also in the network and web applications and even cloud environments. And what they'll do is they'll say, here are all the problems. This is how you fix them. So even though a compliance baseline, the vulnerability assessment, is a good place to start, right, to make sure that you can do business and that your business can operate as it should, if you actually care about cybersecurity, if you actually want your cybersecurity posture to be increased, then you need to look at things that are more technical in nature, and that includes things like a pen test. There are more technical audits and assessments available, things like a purple team, which are actually not going to validate vulnerabilities, but they actually validate your cybersecurity controls directly. Does my EDR actually block real world attacks? Yes or no? That is answered with a purple team. You can't really just say, oh, well, I have the best EDR. Prove it, right? If you really want to determine if your cybersecurity operation is working as expected, prove that attackers that are being hired by, in the ethical cybersecurity space, make sure that they can't get past your cybersecurity tools. Because if they can, then state-sponsored APTs and things like that definitely can't, right? That's how it works, because those people are going to be way more technical than what you can purchase from, the ethical market, if you will, right? Because APTs and even hackers that are part of hacking organizations that hide themselves online, that work for, organizations performing hacking against real world targets, they are going to be better than your standard, pen tester, right? That's just how it goes. And then the last one, the most technical of these, is going to be a red team, that's all uppercase there, or a threat emulation engagement. And threat emulation basically is designed to look just like an APT or as close as they can get to an APT, and it's specifically designed to test your blue team capabilities. Can your blue team actually see us? A purple team is like, can your tool see us? And you're going to work together with the blue team. That's why it's purple, right? Red plus blue equals purple. So the purple team, you're working together. But a red team or threat emulation, you are directly at odds. You are trying to bypass, you're trying to hide from the blue team. Okay? So this is the most expensive of these audits, and it kind of goes from 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of cost. Just for a quick reference, vulnerability assessment, maybe $2,500 a quarter. Pen test, anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a week. Purple team could be $25,000 to $50,000 a week, and a threat emulation could be $250K to $1 million per year. Okay, just to kind of give you an understanding of of all of that. Okay. So we're going to talk about a couple popular cybersecurity tools with some practical demonstrations. Because we only have so much time to show everything off, we're going to have to probably cut this a little bit short, but we're definitely going to be able to see Sentinel-1 and Microsoft Defender, XDR, and Microsoft Sentinel solutions, which this is more of their SOAR platform. Okay. So again, we probably won't have time to look into these, but again, anything that I would show would be in something like a video. Feel free to Google those and look those up. But these are some really common tools that are used on the blue team side: Splunk and Security Onion. Right. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So really briefly, I'm going to show you the Sentinel-1 dashboard. You guys have probably seen something similar to this before, but the Sentinel-1 dashboard specifically is for EDR, and it's it gives you all the good data on the dashboard, of course. But let's go ahead and take a look at an actual incident. So this is going to be how it kind of displays this threat. It shows you the endpoint that it's running on. It shows you whether or not it thinks that it's a problem. It shows you the types of indicators that may specify why this is a problem. And then, of course, you can always go into more detail, right? If we blow this up and we say, let me see the threat in all of its glory, it of course shows me everything: the path of the utility, how it was found, right, through static or dynamic validation, and how it's classified, the size. And of course, now that we know it, we can download the file. If we want to run it in our own utility or sandbox, we can perform threat hunting for that specific file in the rest of our environments on all of our other endpoints. And of course, it gives us all of the information about the endpoint that we could need. There is an explore feature, which kind of tells us like a timeline. If it's just a single file, normally it doesn't actually show much on the explore side, but I think the timeline is also going to show just very basic as well. It really depends on what the attack is. The explore function, if it's a process, will show you the entire tree, whereas this is just a file, right? So not a whole lot going on this specific attack, but this is what Sentinel-1 looks like. These EDR portals are all kind of similar in the way that they give you information. Okay. Speaking of similar, let me show you what Defender looks like. All right. So again, we'll see the Defender homepage. Remember that Defender, this is technically Microsoft Defender XDR. Used to be called Microsoft Defender 365. And then even before that, it had a different name that is eluding me right now. But this is basically, a Microsoft Defender, and it looks kind of similar. There's some other stuff that Microsoft does, like Secure Score, but it shows you managed devices, whether or not you have any risks, any high threats that are happening, right? Any new devices that have been added, anything like that, any active incidents that may be going on. But if we jump into incidents specifically, we can say, okay, well, let's look at some actual incidents. Remember, again, this is all in the cloud, so you're going to notice that it's a little bit slower. These public cloud environments are always going to have a little bit of a delay. Remember that these environments are queued, which means that I'm making requests, but so are a bunch of other people, and it gets to it when it gets to it. Okay? That's how it works. So let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look at a high one. Yeah, this one should be fine. This one got called out for defense evasion. So this should be kind of cool. You can see how Microsoft Defender, this is kind of a more real attack here. So it shows us this incident graph and shows us kind of like how the attack happened, what device it was on, and what user was logged in. So it kind of shows us the entire attack story, if you will. Also shows us the individual alerts, which we can take a look at. So if we click on this, right, we get an easy pane, like something very simple. But it does show a lot of information. Obfuscated reverse shell. That is exactly what this is. So Defender picked this up perfectly. Saw it, responded to it, perfect. Let's go and take a look at the assets, right? So you can see the users, the devices, evidence and response. This is going to be the process information, seeing the verdict that it's coming up with in terms of its automated verdict there, and then a summary, things that we can just look at, kind of the stuff that we saw in the right pane. The incident is basically just a combining of a bunch of different alerts that some of them are seen here. You can see that, I'd have to add open this up in terms of the timeline. But that's kind of what the EDR portal looks like. The threat hunting portal is like so. So basically, if you want to pull specific information, you can actually make this is called KQL. This is a flat database language, a flat query language, and it allows you to search log files from all of your endpoints that are connected to Microsoft Defender. So this is a really cool way to find information and to query for information in your environment easily. So you can see some account information has to do with people logging in and things like that. I think these are these attempted logins, I believe. I think that's what they are. Attempted logins. Our source provider is Azure Active Directory, people trying to log in, summarize those identities, right? So this query it allows me to search for things very simply just by figuring out KQL a little bit and then searching across the entire environment. Very, very handy. And this is kind of what threat hunting looks like, okay? We search for things. So let's take a look at Sentinel. And there is actually, I think Sentinel has just been added to the Defender platform. I'm less on top of it, but I think that I don't have it connected over here. But in Azure, Sentinel is already configured, and basically the way the Sentinel works is you have incidents that Sentinel can describe. It's very similar to Defender. If you're giving it enough information, then it can start to describe that information for you in the form of incidents. But on top of that, not only can you do hunting, just like you can do in Defender, but you can also utilize what's known as workbooks and notebooks, which allow you to do virtualization as well as automation. Jupyter notebooks are actually utilized by Sentinel, which is basically Python, to perform automated remediation and things like that. Very, very simple to do that. There's also templates and stuff that you can use. Even further, if you want to add information into your Sentinel database, because it's designed with its own repository and stuff, Defender is separate from Sentinel as far as I understand. You can import new data connectors. We can basically create and add new data connectors to Sentinel. And a data connector is essentially, like, let's say that I want to add everything from Google, right? Let's say that I have a GCP environment. I can actually inherit or pull down all the logs from Google, put them into my Sentinel database, and then query them directly, creating a security operations center that is managing information not only from Azure and my endpoints and my network equipment and my next-gen firewalls, but even some of my other cloud information, some of my other cloud service providers, my CSPs. So it's everything. You see all these different vendor names here. They support hundreds of different vendors. Aruba, Atlassian for Confluence, so many different things that you can upload and be able to provide that information for. Okay. So again, we're a little bit short on time. Splunk and Security Onion would have been whole other build outs, but if you've ever seen a SIEM, they all kind of look the same, roughly. Nice, pretty pictures, right? The ability to search for stuff, and that's kind of Splunk is one of the main ones in the industry. Security Onion, you can actually build yourself, completely free, completely open source. Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up a little bit with our CySA exam overview. There are objectives, right, that every CompTIA exam has, and the objectives for CySA are threat management, vulnerability management, cyber incident response, and security architecture and tool sets. So these are going to be the things that you would focus on in terms of what you need to know. Threat management, obviously going to be understanding what threats are and how to manage them. Things like risk registers and things like that is what it's talking about here. Vulnerability management is things like vulnerability assessment utilities as well as other audits. And again, kind of harkening back to the risk register, everything that gets found gets categorized, and then it gets given like an owner, and then a team or a technical person is assigned to resolve that. Once that issue is resolved, then the risk register gets updated, whether the risk is increased, lowered, stays stagnant, whether it gets reduced to zero, and so they can just delete it off the risk register. That is kind of the point of those two categories. Threat management is more of like a more of a top-down, and vulnerability management is really handling the individual vulnerabilities. Cyber incident response is your blue team responding to incidents, right? So as attacks actually happen throughout the day, throughout the time that the SOC is managing and watching for those alerts, they will respond to real-world incidents as possible. Okay. Um, So, uh, security architecture and tool sets are really the way that a environment is designed. Understanding basic cybersecurity principles, understanding basic tools, things like that. Those are going to be the things that um, that we need to cover whenever we're preparing for the CISA. Okay, and again, that's going to be things like Splunk is a really good option there. Defender is a really good option there. Understanding some of those basic tools that are used by real world organizations is going to be key. Right, and again, tips and tricks on all of the CompTIA exams. A lot of this is crucial for all CompTIA exams, but understanding what the PBQs look like is so important. Okay, so important. So the PBQs are basically they are live questions. So they're kind of like, they could be drop downs, they could be drag and drops, they have a picture, right? They're not just questions with A, B, C, or D. They are performance based questions. So they're going to have a little bit more designed with them. If you've never seen a PBQ, I highly recommend you look up some PBQs online. They will show you what they kind of look like, give you some basics on what they look like, and you can go from there. The time limit is also a big deal on almost all these exams. It's going to be around the 90-minute mark, kind of just depending, especially for CompTIA. But once you understand the time limit, it kind of comes down to you have roughly 1 to 2 minutes per question. So that's really, you have to be able to understand the language to quickly move through the content and answer the questions one by one. So the time limit is a big deal whenever you're taking these exams. Study habits and behavior. Again, make sure that you're always studying. You don't have to study like for 8 hours straight, but what I recommend is anytime that you have downtime, get an app on your phone and study like that, right? Just look at a couple questions. You're in a car, you're on the bus, you're stuck in traffic, right? Maybe you just take a look real quick, answer a couple questions. Doesn't have to be anything wild, right? Just if you find some downtime, utilize that downtime for studying. I also recommend a study buddy. Study with someone else, let them ask you questions, and then you try to answer them, and that back and forth nature will help you understand the questions and the answers much better than just doing it solo. 100% you have a better outcomes with study buddies. Okay, and then understand the tools for the CISA specifically. Understand the tools: EDR, SIEM, logging, right? Understanding how to read logs is a big part of that. Understanding network design and cybersecurity concepts just in general, as well as all the blue team stuff, things like incident response, how EDRs work, what a SIEM is, and why a SIEM needs to be configured, visibility, and things like that. And again, one of the things that I think we don't have on the slide is understanding data, right? Because a blue teamer really, at the end of the day, is looking at data sets to try to determine if an attack happened and whether or not that attack was malicious. And how do they do that? How does a SIEM determine all that information? How does it provide information to the SOC analyst? Through logs. So in some scenarios, you have to actually look at the raw logs coming off of the endpoint if the SIEM hasn't been configured, or if that device was missed, or something along those lines. That's why it's important to have the configuration of the SIEM completed and done before an incident happens. Okay, that's why configuration is so important. All right, and that is the overall for the CISA Plus. Thank you guys so much. Are there any questions from the audience?
Thank you, Logan. That was very informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the question panel. And while you do that, I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Nikita Singh, our Deputy Manager of Product Marketing, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you for extending the opportunity to speak with the audience today. I hope the session was informative and it added value to your learning experience. You can watch the event recording by clicking the Access Recording button here. Now, I would like to highlight Netcom learning capabilities and why we are the best when it comes to training and learning services. Recognized by Microsoft as the winners of the Partner of the Year awards 2 years in a row, 2023 and 2022, we excel in guiding organizations to achieve peak performance while addressing their challenges through comprehensive organizational learning solutions. Our dedication since 1998 has led us to service over 80% of Fortune 1000 companies and served 100 plus US military bases. We have trained over 1 million professionals and helped 36,000 plus organizations achieve their business goals. We have a huge portfolio of more than 3,300 certified trainers who are subject matter experts in their domains, and our dedication to providing customized learning methods is why we are awarded as the top 20 IT training companies by trainingindustry.com. Moving ahead, being a platinum learning partner of CompTIA, I would like to announce our upcoming schedules of CompTIA training that you can explore through this handout. And to add value to your learning curve, we encourage you to leverage free on-demand training and blog on CompTIA certifications. You can also take advantage from Learning Passport, which is Netcom Learning's solution to flexible team training. It is designed to be customized for the number of learners you train on top technology vendors like Microsoft, Cisco, CompTIA, Adobe, and more. The single package can be redeemed for over 4,000 plus official courses with a validity of 12 months. To introduce you to Netcom Plus Learner subscription, which is complimentary for all the attendees. And Netcom Plus provides you access to more than 400 e-learning courses across various technologies and vendors. I would recommend you all to visit Netcom Learning's website for more information on courses and certifications, free virtual events, our latest blogs and ebooks, and promotional offers. If you want to build a smarter workforce and drive business growth, I highly recommend you go through the book Building an Innovative Learning Organization by Russell Sader, CEO of Netcom Learning. You can easily find this ebook on Amazon. And for the latest updates on IT and business training, follow us and subscribe to our social media handles. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Nitika.
And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. If you haven't yet, it's not too late to pop your questions into the question panel. And as we start our Q&A sessions, we're also going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us to know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
The first question we have today is, what can I do in a leadership position to help increase the security posture of my organization?
Okay, so like we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, I don't really recommend just trusting all of your blue team tools. You need those tools, right? Defense in depth, still very important in this day and age, very important. But don't trust the tools alone. Have someone come in and actually check your organization. And what I mean by that is get a red teamer, hire a red teamer, hire an auditor, hire someone that will perform a pen test or something similar to validate whether or not there's a bunch of vulnerabilities in your organization and all of your assets. That is the best way to do it. On top of things like making sure that you're utilizing proactive cybersecurity steps on the blue team side, proactively threat hunting, and things like that. That is how you really perform security in this day and age, and that's really how you increase your security. Just meeting things like compliance is not enough.
What are some of the tools that my SAC analyst should focus on for upskilling?
Splunk is a really good one, or the SIEM that you're already using. Azure is a great one. Azure Defender and Sentinel are fantastic utilities. If you're talking about the IR side, things like Autopsy, FTK Imager, Arsenal. What is this tool called? Arsenal Image Mounter. Right, there's a lot of blue team tools that are open source. Honestly, some of the blue team tools are all open source that you can focus on and just work on. Analyzing images. Right, take an image, if it's BitLocker, decrypt it. Right, and then analyze the image, write up a report. That's the type of stuff, the type of tools, the type of skills they need to be working on.
How can I shift my business towards proactive cybersecurity?
So getting leadership on board is probably the biggest detail here, making sure that they understand what needs to be done in order to get us there. So including like adding things like making sure that we have a threat hunting platform, and then not only making sure that we have it and that it has visibility to all the endpoints but that we have someone that is that we have someone that can actually utilize those tools, right? That we have someone that is um, skilled enough to utilize that threat hunting platform to actually get something out of it, right? Because the outcome of threat hunting normally is nothing. If I search for something and I don't find anything, I'm happy. So in order to understand whether or not your threat hunter is actually making progress, they need to have that skill set, and they need to be able to describe what they're searching for and why they're searching for it and why it's a good idea to be paying them, right? All that money, because these people are not necessarily cheap in terms of labor.
How will CySA better prepare myself or my technicians?
It is like one of the most general blue team cybersecurity certifications out there, and really gives you that foundation for what is blue team, what do we do, what skills do we need, where do we start. That is really what the CISA Plus is for, and is what I would recommend if you're getting into like a SOC analyst or you need to upskill your SOC analysts. Okay?
What other skills should I focus on for myself or my technicians?
Generally, I mean, I think that red teaming is a really good way to increase cybersecurity posture, but not only for your organizations, but also just for your technicians. If you get your technicians trained on the attacker side, right? If you send them after red team certifications, that can actually better prepare them for blue team, because again, it kind of comes back to the to playing games, sports and things like that. If the red team is the offense and the blue team is the defense, sometimes the best way to get better at blue team is to play red team, right? Is to play offense. So that's a really good methodology for increasing your cybersecurity posture, your skill sets, understanding what tools, what approaches attackers use. The best way to learn all that is to just go learn red teaming, right? Don't assume that the blue team is going to be able to learn all that through these types of certifications on their own. They may need red team skills, right? That is it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience, as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.